Muy buenas tardes, mis amados. Good evening, my beloved ones. Hoy es el día 4 de esta hermosa Semana Santa, and today is day 4 of this beautiful Holy Week. Y vamos a estar escuchando de parte de nuestra amiga y maestra de la Biblia, Molly Ann Massey, desde Camelot, Huntsville. And we are going to be learning from our own friend and Bible teacher, Molly Ann Massey from Camelot, Huntsville.
This is day 4. Our verse is Mark 15:34 and Matthew 27:46. And our saying is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew 27:46 says, about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Likewise, Mark 15:34 says, at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani? Which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? This verse reminds us that Jesus was both fully man and fully God. The verse records his feelings of abandonment while he was dying on the cross. As he bore the sins of the world upon the cross, he knew the isolation and abandonment we feel as a result of our sins. The best definition we know of sin is a transgression or anything that separates us from God. I suspect that Jesus came to know that feeling of separation from God, his Father, on the cross. This can be an unbearable feeling of loneliness, isolation, and abandonment. Thus he cried out to God, why have you forsaken me? This verse makes Jesus human and very real, and his humanity is real. He knows what separation from God is, even though he was without sin. He knows the depths of despair that we feel when we believe that we are all alone, facing some insurmountable obstacle. In truth, we are not alone, as the Holy Spirit is always there with us. But this is very hard to remember when we are sad, hopeless, in despair, grieving, and beat down by life. I'm going to read you a story or an account of a time in Ed's life when he felt forsaken. He said, Molly and I have both experienced these times. One of the most difficult times for me was when I lost custody of my 2 daughters. I was accused in court of many things that were untrue, and at the time I was not even able to see my daughters. The damage to my relationship with my daughters resulting from this situation is still present. Throughout the ordeal, I kept wondering when this was going to end. Perhaps it was all a bad dream that I would wake up from and everything would be okay and all right. But that did not happen. I remember one time in the courtroom when I was all alone because Molly had to be somewhere else at that time. The profound loneliness and despair I felt seemed unbearable. I knew that God was there, but I prayed for Molly to return. The minutes that it took for her to return seemed like an eternity. I felt very blessed when Molly returned. My relationship with my daughters is still not what I would have it to be, but it is as God wills it to be, and that is good enough. My story is somewhat different. I was much younger the first time I really understood what forsaken and abandoned felt like. I was 23 years old. I was expecting Annie. I had my son was almost 2 years old, and their father was in the military, and he was being sent to the Philippines on a 1-year tour of duty that was called a remote tour of duty because he would be living remotely from his family. And we knew this was had to be. There was no way out of this particular assignment. So I moved back home to be close to my family, and he was going. The day arrived that he had to leave, and I took him to the airport. He said goodbye to our son at home and to my family. He had already said goodbye to his family. We had seen them. And I had to drive him to the airport. And I went in and we waited, and he was in, I believe he was even in his civilian clothes. So, and it wasn't like it is now, where there's so many troops deploying and people are there to see you off and there to see you when you come back. It was a very different time in our nation's history. He was traveling, and we sat at the gate. It was back when you used to be able to go all the way to the gates. And we sat there, and I tried so hard to be brave, and I tried not to cry when he left. But I was 23, and I didn't know what I was going to do. How was I going to be the responsible adult and be a grown-up and have a 2-year-old who was very active and very smart and a newborn baby? And I felt so abandoned and forsaken and unsure, and I didn't know how lonely that would be. I had never lived alone apart from my family, or as soon as I got married, I moved in with my husband, and so I had never lived alone as the only adult in a house. And I held it together. I didn't cry until he left, and after I watched him go down the jetway and got on the plane, and I watched the plane taxi off, and then I went in the ladies' room, and I fell completely to pieces. I cried until I was sick. And there I was, standing in the ladies' room, crying as hard as I could. I was 6 months along with Annie, and I was quite large, very obviously expecting baby. And I finally thought, well, I need to go home. I can't stand here in the ladies' room forever. And every time I would think I was okay to leave, I would start sobbing again. I felt abandoned, alone. So it does have this particular event in my life had a wonderful ending, and reminded me that God the Father is with us. He doesn't forsake us. He's promised He will not forsake us. It was when I got to my car that day, my dad was standing there, and he looked at me, and I was crying.
Like Molly's story, her father looked for her and met her when she was feeling more abandoned and sad. Como la historia de Molly, su papá la buscó y la encontró en el momento en que ella más se encontraba abandonada y triste. God is looking for you and for me to meet us where we feel abandoned or sad. Dios está buscando por ti y por mí en los momentos en los cuales nosotros podemos encontrarnos solos y tristes. Dios está allí. God is there with you. Jesús sabía por lo que estábamos pasando en ese momento en la cruz. Jesus knew what we was feeling now in that moment on the cross. And Jesus is telling us that He will be with us all the days until the end of the time. Y Jesús nos dice ahora que Él va a estar con nosotros todos los días hasta el fin del mundo. Vamos a orar. Let's pray. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and your compassion, and for meeting us where we need you. Gracias, Señor. Gracias, Jesús, por tu amor y por tu compasión, y por encontrarte con nosotros en el momento en que más te necesitamos. Tu amor es suficiente. Your love is enough en nuestras vidas, in our lives. Gracias, Señor. Gracias por tu presencia, que aun cuando nos podamos sentir abandonados, podamos ver tu amor. Thank you for your love in your presence, that even in those moments that we can feel abandoned, you are there with us. In the name of Jesus we pray. En el nombre de Jesús oramos. Amén. Mañana continuamos con nuestros devocionales and we will continue tomorrow with our devotionals and prayer during Holy Week. Durante esta Semana Santa vamos a continuar con nuestros devocionales, no se lo pierdan. Desde Albertville vamos a tener nuestro 5º devocional and we are going to have our 5th devotional from Albertville. Los esperamos.